Good morning, everyone.
So I think that last week we reached the end of Canto 2. Am I right?
I think so.
Yeah. So the first two cantos introduced us to Savitri and her mission. And now we are going to embark on an enormous flashback which will tell us how Savitri came to be born. That is what is mentioned in the first line. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. And that story of how Savitri came to be born, it takes us right up to the middle of the book, to page 348. And then we get the story of Savitri herself, her birth, her youth, her growing up, and her father sending her out to find her life's partner, her quest, and how she meets him, and what happens then. So all that takes us even further. That takes us up to page 561, where we come back again to this morning, where we meet Savitri waking up on the morning of the day when Shraddhavan must die. So we've got quite a long journey before we come to that place. So now we're going to start on the story of King Aswapati. This first canto is called the Yoga of the King, and the first stage of his many-staged yoga, the yoga of the soul's release. And I think we'll read the first section before starting to look in more detail at each of the sentences.
So what page?
Page 22.
No, not 22. Page 38. It's the first
We will read the first section, which stops on page 26 at the top. Will you start, please, Prasad?
The yoga of the king, the yoga of the soul's release. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth, one in the front of the immortal quest.
Immemorial.
One in the front of the immemorial quest. Protagonist of the mysterious play, in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see. A thinker and toiler in the ideal age, brought down to earth's dump need a radiant power. His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres into our province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality. A pointing beam on earth's uncertain roads, his birth held up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent clock, covered the all-wise who leads the unseeing world, afflicted to cosmic space and time. Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debt to earth and man. A greater sonship was his divine right. Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light of ineffable. A strength of the original permanence, entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the vast behind. A power was in him from the unknowable.
Thank you. Sudha, please. Will you read?
An archivist of the symbols of the unknown, the treasurer of the superhuman dreams, he bore the stamp of mighty memories and shaped their grandiose ray on human life. His days were a long road to the supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots on substance from often spiritual forms, on substance from often spiritual forms, climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived an eternity deliberate. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven. His will a hunter in the trails of light. An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of ocean wings, the little plot of our mortality. Just why this tenant from the house became a playground of the living in time.
Thank you. Mochi?
This bodily appearance is not all. Form deceives. Person is masked. Head deep in man's celestial powers and dwelling. His fragile ship and base for years, an incognito of the imperishable. A spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our immortal poverty. The sculpture of the forms of the infinite, this winged, unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries, hides in a small downward seat of his cosmic thought. In the mute strength of the default idea, determining predestined shape and act, passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, changing his image to self from form to form. He regards the icon drawn by his gaze, and in the form foresees the coming God.
Thank you. Jocelyn?
At last, the traveler in the path of time arrives on the frontiers of eternity. In the transient symbol of humanity's right, he feels his substance of undying self and loses his kinship to mortality, a being of eternal mighty power. His soul stretches in infinitude. All in him turns to spirit vastnesses. His soul breaks out, joining God's soul. His life is returned by the super life. He has drunk from the breast of the mother of the world. The topless super nature fills his frame. She adopts his spirit's everlasting ground as a security of a changing world, and shapes the figure of an unborn mass. In mortality, she conceives herself in the creature, the creatrix works. Her face is seen through his face, her eyes through his eyes, her being is his, through a vast identity. Then is revealed in man a perfect divine, a static oneness and dynamic power descending him. The integral Godhead, his soul and body take that splendid stand.
Thank you.
A long, dim preparation is man's life. A circle of toil and hope and war and peace, dragged out by life on matters obscure to him. In his climb, his feet, no feet, have ever trod. He seeks through a penumbra shot with flame, a veiled reality, half known, ever missed. A search for something or someone never found. Cult of an ideal never made real here. An endless spiral, ascent and falls, until at last is reached a giant point through which his glory shines, for whom we were made.
Thank you. Mi Hong?
This now was witnessed in that son of force. In him, that high transition laid its base, original and supernal immanence, of which all nature's process is the art. The cosmic worker set his secret hand to turn this frail mud engine to heaven use. A presence wrought behind the ambiguous screen. It beat his soul to bear a titan's weight, refining half-hewn blocks of natural strength. It built his soul into a statue god, the craftsman of the magic stuff of self, who labors at his high and difficult pen in the wide workshop of the wonderful world, molded in inward time with rhythmic parts. Then came the abrupt, transcendent miracle. The masked, immaculate grandeur could outline, at travail in the occult womb of life, streamed the magnificence of things to be, a crown of the architecture of the worlds, a mystery of married earth and heaven, a next divinity to the mortal skin. A seer was born, a shining guest of time.
Thank you. Jean-Yves.
For him, mind's limiting firmament seized the ball. With a grieving forefront of the night and day, a gap was rent in the all-concealing world. The conscious ends of being went rolling back. The landmarks of the little person fed. The iron eagle joined its continent. Overpast was this world of rigid, limiting forms. Life's barriers opened into the unknown, wished where conceptions covenants, and striking off subjection's rigorous growth, annulled the soul's treaty with nature, nations. All the great inhibitions were torn off, and broken intellect's hard and lustrous lip. Truth and partitions found in man's sky room, and Empyrean visions saw and knew. The bounded mind became a boundless light. Finite self mated with infinity. His march now soared into an eagle's flight. Out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom appraised him a mastercraft, and made him an arch-mason of the soul, a builder of the immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness, freedom and empire, called to him from on high, above mind's twilight and thy starlit night, there gleams the dawn of a spiritual day.
First, there's this wonderful evocation of the true nature of King Asvapati. And then Sri Aurobindo tells us that this potential is within all human beings, dwelling within us. There's a spirit that is a flame of God abides. And he speaks about the way that that flame grows and develops until at last is reached the giant point through which his glory shines, for whom we were made, and we break into the infinity of God. So this is what happens, what we will see happening to King Asvapati. Sri Aurobindo will describe this process of development in some detail. And so then what happens in him is summarized in this last part of the section, when a seer was born, a shining guest of time. What does that mean? The progress doesn't stop. It goes on and becomes even more and more powerful. Freedom and empire called to him from on high. These are two of the traditional goals of the yoga: liberation, moksha, and samraja, the control over the environment, over the conditions in which one lives, freedom and empire. So for him, above this twilight of mind, the night of life which is led by a few stars of truth here and there gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day, a new dawn in the consciousness. So let's go back and sentence by sentence. Patricia, you would begin.
The world's desire compelled her mortal birth, one in the front of the immemorial quest, protagonist of the mysterious play, in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see, a thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dull need, her radiant power.
Let's pause there. Anybody would like to comment on these lines?
Heart's dumb. This need was dumb. Was not active.
If we think about the earth, and the earth that represents the material universe, she can't express her needs, no? In that sense, she's dumb. The need is there, and she feels it, and material nature tries to find ways to fulfill that need, but can't express that need for the touch of a higher consciousness. King Asvapati is a protagonist. He's a major actor in this mysterious play that we are all involved in. This mysterious play in which the unknown, that unknown omnipresent reality, is looking for himself through forms. He is infinite and eternal, but he has chosen to inhabit the forms of the universe and to hide himself in each of them, and even to forget that he's there, who he is, and that he's there. So the unknown is in us, in everything, looking for himself through all these forms. He's limited his eternity in this universe of space and time, limited himself by the hours. And perhaps what is happening in all this is that the asat, the non-existence, the blind void, the emptiness, which seems to be without consciousness, without the power of sight or knowledge, it's struggling to live and to see, to develop consciousness. That's part of the play.
I was wondering about...
Speak up or nobody can hear you.
That there's a longing for grounding, being grounded, that expression on the ground somehow. Be in touch with the ground. When you think of earth,
Yes.
you connect.
But here he says the earth herself is feeling a need. And she doesn't even know what that need is. It's a blind need. And it's because of that blind need, which is somehow there in matter, that evolution happens. It's the way he has set up his play.
So dumb maybe has two meanings. Dumb means stupid in one sense, but it also means unable to express it. No?
I don't think that Sri Aurobindo ever, in this poem, and perhaps not anywhere in his writings, ever uses the word dumb in this modern colloquial sense of stupid. He uses it in the sense of having no voice, no means of self-expression.
But Protagonist, he's not only the main actor, but he's the one who makes things move.
Happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
because he's the center of the attention.
Yeah, okay. The actor or the agent through which things happen. Yes. So he's this one who has brought about Savitri's birth in answer to this dumb need, to this desire of the world. He is one in the front of the immemorial quest. This quest which is going on, which has been going on further back than anybody can remember, immemorial. He's a leader in that quest.
I wonder if immemorial also means that there were no, memorial in the sense of taking note of it, putting a plaque and something like that. In other words, before anybody really noticed.
Yes, way back, before we can even trace the beginnings. This quest has been going on. I think this quest is expressed in Sri Aurobindo's symbol with the upper triangle that's moving upwards, and there's always one who's the leader of the quest. So at the time of this story, the protagonist, the leader of the quest, is embodied in this one.
Triangle meant that in the time of ancient Egypt also, probably. And just pointing to the pyramid as 4 triangles.
Isn't the symbol there reascending and the Lord?
Yes, of course, there's an ascending triangle. That's the immemorial quest going on. And then there's the response to the immemorial quest, which comes down. And the actual manifestation is the square at the center of that, in which the presence of the Supreme is represented by the lotus.
Sort of what's going on now. Sort of what's going on now. The meaning of the.
Yes, the square is the actual manifestation as it is now. But of course, as one triangle goes up and the other comes down, that whole manifestation is becoming vaster and vaster and vaster. And inhabiting it is the avatar, the Lord, the pink lotus. So he's that. He's one in the front of the quest. He's the protagonist of this mysterious play which is going on in this manifestation. He's the one who has brought down to respond to this dumb need, this world's desire, the radiant power which is Savitri. That's where we stopped, no? He's a thinker and toiler in the ideal's air. The mother has commented very, very beautifully on these lines in the first volume of About Savitri. No, not the first volume, the third volume of About Savitri. I would really recommend you to have a look what she has said. And this idea of somebody who has been working, thinking and toiling in the air, in the atmosphere of the ideal. The ideal is formed before anything gets manifested physically. I think often in Savitri it corresponds to the supermind as creator, that conceptual act of creation. So that's where he has been working. But now he's here on earth. That comes next, a colonist.
And also we could similarly apply to Auroville,
Yes. Mother has created a subtle form of Auroville, or invoked a subtle form of Auroville, which is the ideal, and that has been shared with us in certain powerful words. But what's really acting against all the resistances is the power of that ideal creation, that dream of the Lord, Mother says, no?
Here it's coming down. It definitely has a descending triangle in
Yes.
Auroville.
Yes.
In Egypt they didn't have that.
Who's next? Alice?
His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres into a province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality, appointing being on Earth's uncertain worlds. His birth held up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise who leads the unseen world. Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debt to earth and man. A greater sonship was his divine right.
Thank you. He's come from larger spheres, other worlds, higher worlds, and he's stooped down, he's bent down to come into our little province of ephemeral sight. Here the sight is transient, short-lived. We only get glimpses. He's come as a colonist from immortality. A colonist is one who founds a new city or a new civilization. I mean, nowadays we have a rather negative idea of being a colonist, no? But I think Aurobindo is using it here in the original sense, of the way that the ancient Greeks, for example, spread their civilization all around the Mediterranean by sending out groups of young people to found cities, to colonize and establish that greater civilization. So he's a colonist from immortality. What he wants to do is found the state of immortality here in the material world.
In Greek, you have, for me, when I go to Greece, immortal light. Essentially, only this.
That's a very special light. It's true.
First time I go and see this sun and the light, essentially.
There's a link, though, between the world's desire and this being who you're saying is that's described as a colonist from immortality. Because it's the world's desire that he's calling and evoking Savitri, that's just crying out for that.
Yes.
And he is that also.
He's the protagonist,
yes.
Who's, I think we can say he's the representative of Earth's aspiration, that dumb need. And in answer to that aspiration, which is expressed in him and his action and his life, there has to come a response. And that response comes in the form of the birth of Savitri.
But the king himself has two poles.
Yes, he's carrying that dumb need of the earth. He's representing that. But he's specially qualified to represent that because, at least in his inner being, he's already a very highly developed and conscious person. No? His birth, the fact that he takes birth as a human being, is like a pointing beam from a lighthouse pointing out, no? Pointing the way on our uncertain roads of earth where we get lost and wander and don't know where to go. His birth, the fact that this higher being from larger spheres can be born as a human being and represent the earth's aspiration, that's a symbol in itself, a symbol and a sign of an immense truth. His human self, there he is, he's a human being, he's born, he's a king, he has a special position, but this human self of his is like a cloak that allows the inner light to shine through it. And what it's covering is the all-wise who leads the unerring world. The world is destined for a greater fulfillment. That's what that desire in her is the sign of. And he's the one who has to take this leading position. So he's the representing the all-wise who leads the unseeing world. So he is affiliated, closely related to cosmic space and time, to the whole universe. And here on earth, he's paying God's debt to earth and man. We will read about this debt elsewhere in the poem. It's as if by creating this material universe and inviting us to inhabit it, the Lord owes us some help. So he's come to help pay that debt, the debt that the Lord owes to earthly creatures, to earth and men.
But how is he exactly affiliated with time and space, cosmic?
I think it means that it refers to this fact that he's come from larger spheres, and even it speaks about this greater sonship. He's come as a son of God, we can say. So in that way he's affiliated. It suggests brotherhood, no? So as cosmic space and time has been
developed soul. Developed person, developed soul.
Yes, more than just a developed soul. The mother, in these comments, she really speaks of him as an avatar. But he comes first as a human being and passes through this whole human process of development, as Savitri also does.
Affiliation is not really creation of that in our world.
It's. I think that he's affiliated. He's a child of these larger spheres of this cosmic dimension. We are smaller here on Earth. You want to say something, Twan?
No, I think often it's she, I will be there himself.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And that's what Nirodbaran has said, that all this whole thing is, this part is Sri Aurobindo's autobiography.
He's describing himself.
But he's doing it in very impersonal terms. What did you want to say? No.
I didn't want to say anything. Just in the previous class, we knew that Asapati was Sri Aurobindo.
That's what Nirod has said, yes. I wouldn't put it quite like that, but I would say that he's basing all this on his own experience. At a very early age, I think when he was 10 or 11, he seems to have had some kind of experience which made him sure that he had some great part to play in the future development of humanity, some big change was coming and he would have a role to play in it. So something like that.
Translucent, they use about the Mahamandir crystal, so it's not simply transparent, but it has a luminosity.
Translucent means that it allows light to pass through it. Something may not be transparent, but it's still translucent. It lets light pass through.
Pass through, even if you can't see clearly the other side.
And the message of 15th August 1947, as he says, no, at which I am born, then he expresses all his dreams.
Yeah.
So that is again gift of a debt of the divine, which is being fulfilled for which he is born, and
Yes.
the divine help.
Yes. So again, we can think about the symbol, the interaction between the upper aspiration and the response, the divine response. And this is an ongoing, it's not a static thing, it's an ongoing process. Mariage, would you like to read?
Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable. The strength of the original permanence entangled in the moment and its flow, he kept the vision of the vast behind. The power was in him from the unknowable. An archivist of the symbols of the beyond, a treasure of superhuman dreams, he bore the stamp of mighty memories and shed their grandiose way on human life. His days were a long road to the supreme. The skyward being nourishing his root on sustenance from occult spiritual founts, climbed through wide ways to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived an eternity's delegate. His mind was like a fire sailing heaven. His will a hunter in the trails of light. An ocean impulse lifted every wave. Each action left the footprints of the god. Each moment was a beat of puissant wings. The little blood of our mortality, touched by discernment from the heights, became a playground of the living infinite.
Thank you.
Before analyzing this part and the last one, previous one, where it says that the greatest something, I believe what, I trust what one says, one says everything is fine for me completely. But one can think that Jesus, as he says that I am the Son of God, we could attribute all these things to him too.
I think this, you could say, is a kind of a generic description of an avatar. Each of the great avatars has come to help pay God's debt to man. Each of them has come as a son of God. So Jesus Christ had a special role to play. Buddha has had a special role to play. Sri Aurobindo himself felt closest to Lord Krishna. But that's the idea, no? That in a way each and every one of us is a son of God. But how to say? There are the beings who develop in the evolution, the souls who've accepted to be involved and to start and follow the whole adventure of unconsciousness from matter, passing up through all the evolving forms and the psychic being gradually developing and become more and more and more powerful. These are evolutionary beings, and most of us are like that. But every now and then, yuge, from age to age, beings are sent from larger spheres, from higher planes, beings who are not born because they have to be born in the ongoing process of evolution, who are free, who have freedom and empire, and who consent to be born as human beings. to help this process to go on.
Kind of intervention and our acceleration.
Yes, yes. So Sri Aurobindo is showing Asvapati like a being like that. He has stooped from larger spheres. And so because of that, he's brought with him some special gifts. But he's consenting to mortal ignorance. He accepts to put on this grip of ignorance and death and be a human being. But there's still some memory, his knowledge shared the light ineffable. He's accepted to be entangled like us in the moment and its flow, but he's keeping the vision somewhere in him. He's keeping the vision of the vasts, the much vaster existence that he has known. And he's carrying in him this power from the unknowable, the one who's beyond the reach of our comprehension or grasp.
So we forget and he's always connected. This is a kind of summary of his true nature. Then Sri Aurobindo will describe in detail the stages by which this special being realizes his greatness. He starts in this state of accepting mortal ignorance, but he's carrying within him this knowledge that shares the ineffable light, the inexpressible light of the Supreme. He's carrying within him a strength from that permanence, that what never changes and cannot be destroyed. No. But he's accepted to be entangled in the moment and its flow. But as you say, there's a connection. He kept the vision of the vasts behind.
Memories, mighty memories.
Yes, he's got these mighty memories. He remembers those higher spheres, no? And those mighty memories have left some kind of a mark on him, his personality and his being, and he sheds that light on human life. No? But he's like everybody who accepts to be born on earth, he's going through a progress. His days were a long growth towards the Supreme. He's moving towards those higher levels of existence, skyward, but he's nourishing his roots on sustenance, not from the earth, but from hidden spiritual sources, founts. And he's climbing up through these white rays of pure integral consciousness to meet a sun, a splendid condensation of divine force and light and energy. Here on earth, his soul lived as a delegate, somebody who's been sent with a message and a mission from eternity. And to help him fulfill that mission, his mind is full of energy also, assailing heaven, attacking, besieging heaven. And his will, Sri Aurobindo refers to Asvapati's will in several places. His will is a hunter on the trails of light. A hunter who's tracking an animal will be looking for traces that it has left, what tiniest little traces. No? So the Asvapati's will is following those little signs of supreme light. The life force in him is also very powerful. An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Breath is the prana, the life force. No? In him it is very vast and wide. Each action left the footprints, the marks, the signs of a God, a superhuman being. For him, each moment was a beat of powerful wings, like a great birds soaring above earthly things. This earth, this little plot of our mortality, where we live in the shadow of death always. Once it's touched by this tenant from the heights, a tenant is a temporary resident. No? He's coming for a short time. He's not a permanent resident. He's come from the heights. He's come to visit this plot.
Yeah, but to whom is he paying rent?
To earth, I suppose. He's accepting the ignorance and being entangled. That's the rent that he's paying. When he is on earth, this little plot of our mortality becomes a playground for the living infinite. That's what he embodies.
In the beginning, Shraddhavan 6 hours per day.
Not in the very beginning, you see. The very interesting thing about Aurobindo is that Mother says he was not born an avatar, that he had to become an avatar. And he has also referred to this. He says, if I had come with all kinds of special qualifications, how could I ask you people to follow me? I'm inviting you to follow my example. So, no doubt circumstances were arranged for him, and I've spoken about that intimation he received as a child. He was obviously a very, very gifted child. But when he returned to India, he had that, well, before, when he left India, he says a kind of darkness fell on him, and he grew up in that state. And it was only when he returned to India at the age of 21, I think, that he had the experience of a deep, calm light coming to him. But he was still living just as an ordinary person, doing his teaching and so on, deciding to get married. And it was, I think, only in 1904 that he'd grown up somehow as at least an agnostic or an atheist and a materialist. He had an experience that gave him the certainty that there are other powers and that he needed those powers for the independence movement. And that's when he didn't know what else to do. Somebody suggested pranayama to him, and he practiced pranayama, and he found that he had very astonishing results, but it was not the results that could satisfy him. And so then, as a result of that aspiration, he was introduced to Vishnu Bhaskar Lele, who somehow gave him the key, which I won't go into now. It's too long a story. So that was when he realized that there are much, much higher and greater possibilities of consciousness available, not only to him, but to everyone, or to everyone who's willing to make the necessary. And he started to follow that path. As a householder, he himself has said, not even as Brahmacharya, as a householder. And then there comes the moment of the 24th of November 1926, the descent of the Krishna consciousness.
All the avatars.
Sorry?
All the avatars have to face this kind of situation. All the avatars.
We don't know really about the legendary ones, no? But we know about Lord Buddha, that he passed through many stages before he achieved his realization. Lord Krishna, I don't know, he seems to have been divine from birth.
So about Rama, when he was a child, someone has written in poem
Yes.
that he was eating something, crow came snatched away, and he was weeping like a helpless child.
Yeah.
So it is narrated by a poet.
Yes.
About Rama.
Lord Rama. Yeah.
So they were born avatars, but all the situations.
I don't know whether I can tell a story about Lord Rama. Shouldn't, no? For another occasion, maybe.
I want to interject something about when I read the autobiography, it was a biography about him. His father is so intricate in the development, I felt. His father insisted on all these things that in English and sent him to Cambridge,
Yes.
and he went through many austerities and everything.
Yes.
The father must have been a very special man, that's what I get.
He was certainly a very remarkable man. Yeah.
He was, and then the difficulty
Yes.
about the money, and then Aurobindo'S mother, who was very disturbed, emotionally disturbed, and she had to be put out. All that was like fodder or something to grow.
Yes.
Something.
So this is what we believe happens with great beings, no? That all the circumstances necessary to form their greatness or the instrumentality of their greatness is given. No, Mother's story also, it is all there. Yes. So this is what is going to be described for us. What are the helps, what are the circumstances that are given to Asvapati to help him realize his greatness? So just in this first section, Aurobindo is only giving us an outline of his essential nature. No? All those stages will be described later.
Even Shraddhavan, in Aurobindo's writing, he has got so much connection with Krishna, Lord Krishna,
Yes.
and Lord Rama.
Yes.
And also you mentioned that Lord Rama is an avatar of Sattvic. Sattvic nature. So it still has got this human moral values and all that. So its connection. My question is, people from India, did Rama came first or Krishna?
Rama came first.
Okay. I didn't know. Maybe they met each other. Is there any connection?
No.
If they had met, in the real.
No, I mean, Rama, the life of Lord Rama is supposed to have happened several thousands of years before.
Basically, when humanity comes to an impasse, it can't go wrong. These forces come down. And they have to come down with humanity to be able to understand and talk in the language of the cubist, to open the valves that are permanently closed. And so if he doesn't come down and take the shape of ignorant, how can he ever communicate to you? Not knowing what ignorance is, being so big. To make this clear. And that's the reason why he comes down as a non-avatar, and he develops himself. He finds the power that you should discover in yourself the same, and he gives the way to do it. And that should be an integral one, from top to toe and backwards. That's why it's called integral. The others, they omitted certain parts, and he unites them. But he is covers to all wise in a translucent cloak. I mean, the all wise didn't say nonsense. He takes it and it keeps on radiating. He just put them together. That's what I think is the reality.
Thank you, Tuan. So what he's going to describe next is the way that all of us are carrying somehow this potentiality in us. No? We read it. Shall we read a little bit further?
One more question.
Yes.
His mind, his mind was like a fire assailing heaven. Is it not assailing earth also?
No, the idea is that he's here on earth. He's in a human form. He's got a mind and a life and a body. And the mind is such that it's got this very, very powerful energy which is aiming always for the higher levels of consciousness.
Fire represents energy. Fire.
Yes. We could have a look at the description in the author's note. Asvapati, the lord of the horse, that's what his name means. Her human father, Savitri's human father, is the lord of tapasya. And then Sri Aurobindo says what he means by tapasya, the concentrated energy of spiritual endeavor that helps us to rise from the mortal to the immortal plane. That's what he represents in the poem. He's carrying this possibility very much alive within himself, that he's here to go through this immense tapasya. In the legend, it is 18 years of dedicated tapasya before he gains the boon from the mother. So Sri Aurobindo shows us that tapasya in stages. Tuan, would you read what comes next? This bodily appearance, it's line 42.
This bodily appearance is not all. The form deceives. The person is a mask. Hid deep in man's celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable, a spirit that is the flame of God who lights, the fiery portion of the wonder, artist of its own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal bodies. This sculpture of the forms of the infinite, this screamed unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries, hides in a small dark sea his cosmic thought, in the mute strain of the occult idea, deep mining, predestined shape and act, passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, changing his self from form to form. He regards the icon growing by his gaze, and in long foresees the coming dawn.
Yes, we can stop there. It continues, of course, for another page to this giant point when we escape across our nature's borderline into supernature's arc of living light. That's the possibility which is offered to us. Because each of us has this fragile ship, the body. This ship is carrying through the sea of years, the sea of time, an incognito of the imperishable. Our bodies may die, but within us there's the imperishable traveling in disguise, incognito. Celebrities travel incognito, under a false name and with behind their sunglasses. Shall we stop there for today?
Compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest, a thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power, a presence wrought behind the ambiguous screen. Then came the abrupt, transcendent miracle, the vast, immaculate grandeur could outline, at travail in the occult womb of life, his dreamed magnificence of things to be, a crown of the architecture of the world, a mystery of married earth and heaven, a For him, mind's limiting firmament ceased above. The landmarks of the little person failed. The island ego joined its continent. Overpast was this world of rigid, limiting form. Life's barriers opened into the unknown.
Thanks to Shraddhavan.